The negotiations are continuing. What even Shivani was mentioning, does this give more ammunition for talks on the table with US? What is your opinion?
Well, as Pramit has mentioned, and Mr. Talreja has also mentioned, everybody is trying to hedge his or her bets. And with President Trump behaving in a very erratic and irrational manner, people are looking around for opportunities. And since the WTO is non-functional, the only avenue open is to have either bilateral or plurilateral trade deals, like the one which has been hanging fire with the EU, between the EU and India for so long. So the India-EU trade deal is on a separate footing. And the EU is also now, it has dropped many of its reservations about investments, about sustainable development, about labor standards, etc. And it is very keen to conclude the deal within the next 2-3 months. Now, as far as the US is concerned, I don't really know whether, for the fifth time, whether some kind of a tentative agreement has been arrived at, and it is waiting for President Trump's approval. But there are two things which need to be borne in mind. One, the US Supreme Court is going to come out with its verdict on the Trump tariffs sooner or later, perhaps by end December, just before Christmas, or early January. And there are enough indications that it may not go all the way in favor of President Trump. So if that happens, then the wind gets taken out of the sails of President Trump, and his preposterous, raising of tariffs, etc., will have to take a beating. So it will be a different world altogether. And of course, one of the conjectures is that President Trump will then resort to Section 232 of the Trade Expansion Act or Section 122 of the other act and continue with tariffs. But they will also face heavy weather. So one of the things which will have a huge bearing on India-US trade talks would be the verdict of the US Supreme Court on the Trump tariffs. The second aspect of this is that India has made a lot of concessions from what we hear. But on the core issues, I think India has not budged. On agriculture, on dairy products, it has not budged. So the US will either have to, take it or lump it. And the associated point in this is that India was, very apprehensive that its exports would suffer by a huge amount. It has not. The exports to the US have suffered, but Indian exporters have found their avenues of exploring new markets, of penetrating new markets, new products. So I think there has been some compensation also by the extra efforts that exporters have made in other markets and in other products. So that pressure to a certain extent has been relieved. Having said that, I think the labor-intensive industries like textiles and clothing, leather, these have been hit very badly. And that has led to a large number of people losing their jobs and businesses shutting down, especially those which were catering to the US market. You need to recall that 28% of our textiles and clothing exports were headed to the US till 2024. So that is a big blow. Apart from the money aspect of earnings, it is the labor, the employment-ish aspect which has also been hit very badly. So all taken together, I think India is, standing firm. It is willing to make concessions, but it also needs to be accommodated on certain aspects by the US administration. And failing that, I think it would continue like this at a standstill.